The PlayStation 5 is an undeniable runaway success, and releasing during one of the most logistically challenging periods in modern human history only makes that more impressive. But with the honeymoon period long over and the console approaching the midpoint of its projected 7-year lifecycle, it's time to be real about its failings. Sony hasn't capitalized on the PlayStation 5's potential. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and this is PS5 10 Ways Sony Are Letting Everyone Down. Number 10. Overcharging for underwhelming services. It's easy to appreciate the argument that Sony is reverting back to the infamous arrogant Sony days of the PlayStation 3 era, given the extortionate prices they're now charging for some of their supplementary services and products. Sony just recently announced that PlayStation Plus will be going up by at least 20% across all tiers, sparking outrage from players due to both the dubious value of PS Plus in its current form and this hike being wildly out of step with annual inflation. Given the PS Plus still lacks a strong library of classics and the new monthly additions to the catalog are wildly hit and miss, lol, Saints Row, lol, it simply doesn't feel like an earned price increase. Elsewhere, there are grossly overpriced new products like the PlayStation Portal, which is retailing for £200 despite being a severely limited remote play device that can't even stream PS5 games directly from the cloud. For another £150, you could buy yourself a Steam Deck, which can both stream PS5 from your console and play thousands of games natively, or just stream to the Remote Play app on your phone right now with a tethered DualSense, making this new tech even less appealing. Between this and the PSVR 2 launching for an eye-watering £530, not an inherently bad price for the tech, but extremely uncompetitive in this particular economy, it feels like Sony is wildly out of touch with what constitutes good value for money. Number 9. Safe formulaic first-party output. Now, it would be ridiculous to declare that Sony's first-party output is bad or anything close to it. They've cracked the formula for delivering extremely polished mega-budget AAA tentpole games almost every single time. The key word, though, is formula, with the overwhelming majority of PS5's first-party titles painting within incredibly familiar and certainly popular action-adventure lines. God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West were notably straightforward, I'd say boring sequels to groundbreaking installments, foregoing meaningful innovation in gameplay for steps forward in thematics or sheer world size respectively. I guarantee you've already forgotten about Sackboy: A Big Adventure and Destruction All-Stars, and Forspoken, though it was created by Square Enix, didn't move the needle whatsoever when it came to raw playability for an exclusive. The PS5 is in dire need of its next Death Stranding, and no, not Death Stranding 2, that doesn't count. What I'm talking about is a fiercely unique experience that strays far from the typical open world action fair template, or at least something that offers a fresh spin on it. Most of Sony's AAA output is at the very least solid, but when you strip away the cutting edge visuals, gameplay and genre variety has barely changed or evolved in years. Number 8. Focusing on live service games. Live service titles are all the rage, at least in corporate boardrooms, with publishers keenly bankrolling titles intended to keep players engaged for years and years, always in the hope of persuading you to drop some cash on those sweet ever-present microtransactions. In 2022, Sony revealed they're planning to go all in on live service games, with a dozen games-as-a-service titles expected to hit stores by the end of 2025. This set alarm bells ringing for pretty much every PlayStation 5 owner, given the easy potential for Sony to shift away from their finite single-player first-party releases towards a glut of soulless live service offering, simply to capitalize on their current position in the market. It'd be ridiculous to declare that live service games are inherently bad, but recent years are littered with the corpses of games-as-a-service games, all being launched and dying within a year or two of when they were proclaimed the next big thing. That Sony's banking on releasing as many as 4 games-as-a-service titles on PlayStation 5 every year until 2026 is concerning to say the least, especially when nothing from Foam Stars to Fair Games, Helldivers 2 to Bungie's next marathon is getting people truly excited. Number 7. Poor messaging to players. From the PS5 to PSVR 2, the revamped PlayStation Plus, and everything in between, modern Sony are bafflingly radio silent for long stretches of time, leaving players to stew in their often justified concerns about whatever products and services are coming down the line. Even when speaking out, the information has often been revealed in dull, even confusing ways, namely with the revised PlayStation Plus tiers, and this could all be so easily avoided. Throughout the PS4 era, Sony mastered the art of customer relations with a host of affable faces, Adam Boyes, Sean Layden, and Shuhei Yoshida in particular, yet the PS5's PR strategy has been primarily driven by SIE president/CEO Jim Ryan. Ryan's overtly corporate manner doesn't make him a particularly compelling face for the brand, ensuring that the PlayStation 5 has felt decidedly more like a capital P product overseen by a capital C company than its predecessor. Sony desperately needs a more relatable human presence and to be more transparent about the overall roadmap moving forward, rather than leaving customers to speculate, often negatively, about what the future may hold. Number 6. A backwards approach to backwards compatibility. Sony has a prehistoric approach to backwards compatibility, especially when Microsoft offers a comprehensive program dating back to the original Xbox. Sony haven't been nearly as respectful to their most loyal customers though, with players expected to repurchase digital versions of classic games if they're even available at all. Contrast to the Xbox, where you can pick up a physical disc, put it in the system, and then play the majority of games. Even the library of classic PS1/PS2 games offered on the revamped PS Plus is shockingly thin, suggesting Sony just isn't interested in preserving their own legacy for audiences new and old alike. Jim Ryan himself mocked the notion of people playing decades-old games at the start of the generation, and nothing's changed. While Sony easily bests Microsoft and Nintendo in many areas, this archaic attitude towards prior generations is just disappointing, in turn handing the Xbox ecosystem or Nintendo's per-console library approach an easy win. Number 5. PS5 still doesn't feel truly next-gen. We're almost 3 years into the PlayStation 5's lifecycle, close to 50% of its potential life going by the last 2 gaming generations, and how many truly next-gen experiences can you actually name? Obviously, games look better on the PS5 and the SSD is a welcome treat, but the overall technical leap from the end of the PS4 to the PS5 feels narrower than ever. Thankfully, we are seeing truly impressive feats of coding like Baldur's Gate 3, but even that is a third-party miracle of a thing, financed over many years in various uncommon ways, also being in early access for years too. It all goes part and parcel with the safe, formulaic nature of Sony's first-party output, where games that feel like they're pushing the medium forward, making full use of the console's hardware, are few and far between. Jim Ryan's walkback of believing in console generations has led to an unusually lengthy amount of cross-generation support, with the vast majority of AAA PS5 games also being released on PlayStation 4. While it's certainly likely that future releases like GTA 6 and the heavily rumored The Last of Us Part 3 will push the technical bar, at present the genuine wow factor is seriously lacking. Honestly, if you can think of one genuinely cool "this is next-gen" moment, let me know down in the comments below. Number 4. Having no real answer to Xbox Game Pass. For all of the many stumbles Microsoft has made over the last 2 gaming generations, Xbox Game Pass truly is the best deal in gaming, a bewilderingly pro-consumer service that offers an unprecedented level of value to players for a reasonable monthly fee. While Microsoft's first-party output has lagged far behind Sony since the launch of the Xbox One, they've managed to somewhat compensate by offering all first-party titles on Game Pass day and date, alongside a slew of smaller third-party releases every month. Getting an Xbox for Starfield, it'll be right there to download, and simply put, PS Plus can't compete, at least in its current form. With a general lack of day-and-date releases, save for the occasional smaller indie and native PC support, PS Plus doesn't feel like a must-have service, especially if you're not regularly playing games online. Now, of course, Sony's first-party AAA titles tend to sell by the bucket load, so there's maybe no real incentive for them to launch a Game Pass-style day-and-date service, but it would be nice to see something in the same ballpark. An enhanced PS Plus with on-time indie releases, AAA games hitting the service in, say, 3 to 6 months, without the likes of God of War Ragnarok only being on a trial basis, that would make it worth paying for. Number 3. PSVR 2 already feels irrelevant. Not every PS5 owner is even remotely interested in what virtual reality has to offer, but still, Sony had a huge opportunity with PSVR 2 to deliver a more refined and user-friendly VR experience compared to that fun yet clunky original. By most accounts, Sony has largely nailed the hardware side of the equation, even accepting the disappointing lack of wireless support, but you'd hardly know it given the utter lack of presence that PSVR 2 has on the wider market. Though launch Windows sales were impressively decent despite Sony's strangely low-key marketing push, the first 6 months of PSVR 2 have been rocky to say the least. From the lack of quality AAA exclusives to the library being flooded with dated Quest 2 ports, Sony's near radio silence on the platform in recent months already feels like they've deprioritized the hardware before it's been out a whole year. Sony has proven in the past that they don't give much patience for ailing devices. Looking at you, PS Vita, and given that VR as a whole has found itself in something of an innovation funk as of late, it seems highly likely that Sony's support for the headset will be minimal at best. Number 2. Too many remakes. One wildly divisive gaming trend of recent years has been a glut of remakes and forced looking in the rearview mirror with far less investment in moving forward. We've seen Sony remake Shadow of the Colossus, Demon's Souls, 2013's The Last of Us, and most alarmingly 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn is also getting a full remake too. It's likely to provide the most up-to-date version of the game alongside the new Horizon TV show, but Zero Dawn is barely 6 years old. Sony obviously sees commercial value in remaking their modern classics, and remakes can make these titles more easily available and accessible to larger swaths of gamers, but there is a tipping point when it becomes too much. After a time, you can't be blamed for feeling that dev time is wasted on rehashing the past with a glossy new coat of paint, rather than coming up with new IP for players to truly love. When you consider that, again, Sony's first-party lineup this generation hasn't done much to break new ground, knowing that they're going all in on remaking their most beloved games and committing to that live service future elsewhere is a supremely boring existence for a video game company. And number 1, wasting the DualSense. When the PS5 launched, by far one of its best received elements was the DualSense controller, which with its advanced haptic feedback and adaptive triggers offered a more tactile PlayStation gaming experience than ever before. Many were quick to dub it one of the greatest video game controllers of all time, and while in theory that's absolutely true, it's been hugely disappointing just how few games get meaningful support. The games which make essential use of the DualSense can be counted on 2 hands, somewhat tying into the fact Sony largely only make third-person action games anyway, so there's little in the way of first-person shooting or driving outside of Gran Turismo 7, which was also on PlayStation 4. Astro's Playroom fired out of the gates at the launch of the PS5, fundamentally tying all aspects of the DualSense into its level design and gameplay in a way I'd argue nothing has since. While it's reasonable that third-party developers wouldn't want to spend extra time working on these features for a single platform, the fact that more of Sony's first-party output isn't taking full advantage of the DualSense is just weird. All I'm saying is the DualSense's haptics and gyroscope shouldn't be another DualShock 4 LED light. But what do you think? Sound off down in the comments below. Are you happy with your PlayStation 5? What's your most next-gen PS5 exclusive? And do you think we've hit the glass ceiling on AAA development, with the likes of Baldur's Gate 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, or the overhaul of Cyberpunk 2077 being the true top end of what's even possible? I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please catch myself, Josh, and Jules over on the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast all week long, and I'll catch you soon.